Yo, what's up guys? Imagine Create Destroy here. In this week's video, I'm going to make this awesome guillotine with a poor soul getting led to it. Now, normally I start off my videos by kind of explaining what I'm doing. I want to change it up a little bit this time. I want to start with the story instead. Let's go ahead and get into it. The sky was bruised with the violet hues of early dawn when they dragged Charles Valen from his cell. Iron shackles bit into his wrists, the cold steel a pale comparison to the colder stares of the guards flanking him. His bare feet shuffled along the damp cobblestone of the castle courtyard, slick with the dew and stained by the remnants of others who had walked this path. The wooden scaffold loomed ahead, black against the pale sky. Above it, the guillotine's blade, rusted and stained with the blood of others, kissed by the light of the rising sun. It was new, a foreign device, brought from beyond the seas, whispered to be swift and merciful. Charles wondered if that was true, or just another story told to calm trembling prisoners. They called him a traitor. In the eyes of King Renaud and his court, Charles had betrayed the crown, not with the sword, but with the voice. He had spoken against the war, spoken for starving, spoken when silence would have kept him safe. Now his voice would fall silent forever. The crowd gathered beyond the wooden barriers, faces pale with fear or flushed with curiosity. Some jeered, a few wept. Among them, Charles thought he saw his sister, cloaked and trembling, her mouth moving in silent prayer. He didn't look again. He couldn't. The priest stepped forward, mumbling something about salvation. Charles barely heard him. His mind drifted back to his youth, to the hills outside Verdun, where the fields ran gold in the summer sun, and his father taught him how to listen to the wind. He remembered the first time he spoke in the square, how people listened, how their eyes changed. He hadn't meant to start a fire, only to light a candle in the dark. They forced him to his knees. The executioner, masked in black, adjusted the collar of the wooden frame. The blade above glinted. A pigeon cooed from the rafters, then took off, startling into flight. Charles drew a deep breath, the last he would own. The air tasted of wood smoke, blood in the morning. Any last words? A voice asked. Charles lifted his chin, his eyes met the horizon, where the sun broke through the clouds like gold spilled from the heavens. Yes, he said quietly, this kingdom will forget my name, but not what I stood for. The lever creaked, then the world went silent. Well, recording that story made me realize that being an audiobook narrator is a lot harder than you think it is. Recording that was a lot of fun, but I think I got some work to do on my storytelling abilities. As you can tell, building the guillotine and the platform it sits on was pretty easy. I just used some balsa wood sticks, some coffee stirring sticks, some balsa wood sheets, and a little string there. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the polystyrene. Super cheap materials, super fun to build, and would honestly fit perfect in any D&D campaigns you're doing as well, any tabletop games that you gotta build terrain for. But yeah, anyway, now we can move on to the base of the build. I was planning on keeping the base simple, but I ended up making the bricks way too small, so it took quite a bit of work. I started by slicing some lines horizontally, then made the smaller bricks vertical. After that, I busted out a pen and just engraved those lines to give them a little more depth and a lot more detail there. I wanted this to look nice and worn, so I individually picked out some stones with my tweezers to rip out, and also ripped out some bigger holes in the road. Now, I think it's funny when I make mistakes, so you can hear me make a mistake, then make fun of myself for making the mistake, and then fixing the mistake, all in real time. Anyway, let's move past that. I used some cardstock to line the edges just to give it a cleaner look. After we cleaned up a bit, I'm going to take some balled up tinfoil, press it against the road, and this will give it a more rocky-like stone rock texture. Then after that, we can prime everything black, and we'll get into painting the road here. Now, I've shown y'all how to paint stones 1,000 times, so instead of retelling something that I've already told in previous videos, I'm going to go ahead and get into a little bit of the history that I found interesting while looking up the guillotine. There's other devices that were similar to this, made by different cultures early on. But this thing was invented in 1789 in the early days of the French Revolution. They were looking for a more humane method of execution, which I think is funny because nothing says humane like beheading somebody in front of a crowd of people while they cheer, or I'm sure some of them were sad while watching it, or scared, but mostly cheering. Enough jokes about beheading. Just kidding, I'll probably make more. The guillotine is responsible for thousands of executions. Some pretty notable names: King Louis XVI, Queen Marie Antoinette, Maximilien Robespierre. I don't know, French people got weird names. Now, those might be big names to you, but honestly, I have no idea who those people are, so whatever. It is crazy to me that this thing was used as a public spectacle. It often drew pretty large crowds. Imagine nowadays you take the wife and the kids to the movies, but back then it was like, hey, there's an execution this weekend. They're gonna cut some dude's head off with a huge heavy piece of metal on a freaking stick. Let's go check it out. It should be a great time. Like, what? And last fact that I thought was pretty interesting: the last public guillotine execution was in 1939. It was less than 100 years ago. People gathered around to watch somebody get their head chopped off. After priming everything off camera, I hit all the wood with a snakebite leather and just a dry brushing off an off-white, and use a skeleton horde contrast paint for the rope. For the guillotine, or wait, I've been saying guillotine this whole time, I think. God dang it. For the guillotine, I started off with a metal metallic paint. Then we're going to use some rust products by AK Interactive. We're going to use a dark rust and then a light rust. We'll just splotch this on with a sponge and it gives a pretty nice little rusty texture. To make this look a little better, I think I should have dipped a dry sponge in some mineral spirits and kind of dabbed off a little bit of the excess. I think the layers were a little too thick. Next up, we can paint the minifigs. I was kind of running out of time, so I did it all with contrast paints. Never really painted minis with contrast paints. The first one came out really good. The second one, not so much, but good enough, I guess. And now that we're done lazily painting the minifigs, we can go ahead and glue everything down and finally move on to adding that sweet, sweet blood for the blood gods. Because what's a beheading without copious amounts of blood, right? I could only imagine being next in line on this thing and it's just already covered with other people's blood. You're like laying in it, looking at it. That just sounds brutal. After we're done with the blood, I'm going to go ahead and paint the sides with the black 4.0. And if you liked the story, liked my little history lesson, and most importantly, liked the build, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Not because it helps the channel, mostly just because it makes me feel better about myself. Anyway, that's another diorama down. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Now let's roll the beauties. Peace.